Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you, the worship leader, or anyone who's looking for more control over their Ableton Live sessions as they're building out tracks. In my context, I'm building them out for a church, but you might be building them out for a tour or a show or whatever. Whatever it may be, I want to create this resource. Hopefully it's helpful for you as we look at how to create fail-safe modes. This is primarily going to be a resource that if you are the person that is running tracks and also performing, or you're leading worship at the same time as you're also running tracks. Say your church doesn't have an MD that can run tracks separately. If you're running it with whether it's a foot switch or a MIDI controller of some kind, I'm going to be showing you how I make my fail-safes, my kind of fallback options if we get off the tracks. So stick around. Let's find out. So I have an Ableton session up. If you watched my first video here on the First Tracks Tuesday video where I built out our Ableton session, this is the same set. But I took out some of the loop features that I will use for the sake of this video. I want to make it more clear how you can set up what is called an IAC driver, an inter-applications controller or communicator device, to control MIDI within your own computer to set up some fail-safes. I want to be clear, there are almost infinite ways that you can use an IAC driver within Ableton Live, but this is how I use them in my context as a worship leader who is also often running tracks and controlling our session while I'm also leading worship. So this works really well for me. There's a ton of ways that you can use an IAC driver. There are ways to use loop features that are different. There's a built-in loop feature, but I'll tell you why I think that's limiting and how to get more functionality out of a loop feature using an IAC driver. So first things first, we have to make sure that our IAC driver is set up for Ableton, that is set up within our computer. So what you're going to do here, you can go to the Spotlight, which is Command Spacebar. You can search Audio MIDI Setup, hit Enter. It'll open it up. Let me drag it in here. So this is what you will probably see. You'll probably see you may not see all these devices like Black Hole. Some of these things are external plugins and things that I've downloaded onto my computer. But this is likely going to be the first page that you see pop up. When you do that, go up to Window, and you're going to hit Show MIDI Studio. And this will show a few different things. This will show a lot of like your MIDI controllers that you've used in the past. Like for this here, you can see grayed out. I have a Sample Pad Pro and a Looptimus. The Looptimus is often what I'll use to control tracks in a service. It's a little floor foot switch with, I don't know, it's like 6 buttons or so that it gives me the functionality I need to be able to control things at my feet in the context of a service. I also have the Sample Pad Pro. This is just a drum pad, something that I've used a few times running tracks from playing drums. But this is what you want to focus on here. So it might look like this. It might look grayed out. And if that is the case, all you need to do, super simple, double click on IAC driver, and then we're going to hit Device is Online, and that should light it up here. So what this is doing, an IAC driver, an inner applications communications driver, allows you to communicate MIDI signal between applications. So if you want to run and connect through MIDI, internal applications on your computer, whether that's like MainStage and Logic, or MainStage in our case Ableton, there's tons of functionality, but for this application, if you're not going to go and expand on this, which if you want more expansions and how you can use this more fully, we can make more videos on that in the future. We can explore that together, but this is a super simple way for you to have flexibility as a worship leader, where if you get off the tracks, if you get off the click, you have a way to fall back and continue without having to stop the song, without having to create an awkward moment, or without having to keep the tracks going and just power through. So you can the way that we're going to do this, we're just going to have one bus set up. I don't change the name. You can change the name. You could name this like loop feature, like loops driver, whatever you want to keep it at, or rename it. I like to keep it as IAC driver, so I know what that is. So you turn that on, you can close this stuff down, and then before you get started with that in Ableton, you want to go to your Ableton preferences. So if you're in Ableton, it's Command comma is a shortcut for that, and then it will jump up like this. Right now I have my audio settings up, but what you can do is link tempo and MIDI right here, and what you'll see pop up here, you'll see active MIDI controllers. So because we turned our IAC driver on, that acts as a MIDI controller within Ableton. And what you need to make sure is selected. What might be selected is nothing. You might have no checkboxes here. So what you want to make sure that you do is you have in the input ports in this IAC driver, in the input side, you want to have that be remote, and IAC on the output side will be track. So it's allowing when it receives a MIDI cue or a MIDI signal from the IAC driver, which I'll show you how we'll do that in just a moment. It allows the input of that signal to act as a remote or like another MIDI controller that will give a command for Ableton to follow. And as if you have too many of these selected, if you have too much kind of going on here, sometimes you can create unhelpful feedback loops. So we're just going to have, for this context, all you need is remote selected on the input side and track selected on the output side. So we can go ahead and close that. So now what we can do is we can add a MIDI track. So you can go Command Shift T, or you can right click and insert MIDI track, but I'd say learn your shortcuts. It makes things a lot easier. So Command Shift T will add a MIDI track. I'm going to make it white, so you can right click, excuse me, not double click, make it white. And what you can do here, in the context of my service, I just always have this kind of living up at the top. But we want to make sure that our MIDI output right here is selected IAC driver bus 1. So that's making sure that we're selecting the right MIDI controller essentially within the program, within Ableton. It's taking that from the IAC driver internally and creating that as a MIDI device. And then what we're going to do is we're going to throw, I'll generally put this at the end of the song. So what this MIDI note is going to do, I want to assign it to have it, once the playhead hits that MIDI note, I want it to send the track back to the previous locator. And with that being said, with that being the case, I will always put this MIDI note, which you can do that by just double clicking on the timeline here, on the grid. Within Ableton 12, what you can do is if you select a section, is you can Command Shift M and it will add a MIDI track as well. But all we need is one note. I know that some people would maybe drag a note all the way across this, but really we just need it, the note to be present. So what you can do is you're going to select so if we double click a MIDI note, we're going to pick any note on this keyboard if you want. For whatever reason, I tend to like an A2. Don't tell me why. I'll change it up every once in a while, but just double click on this section here within Ableton, and then you can see as we zoom in, it's created a MIDI note in this track. And because the IC driver is the output, it has a MIDI device selected. So what we can do now is we can, if you go Command M, or again, you can come up to here and go MIDI up at the top. Anything that's purple is assignable to MIDI. And what I want this to do, I want this to create a loop feature where if we're off in a song, it's going to keep us in the song. It's going to keep us in the tempo that we're in. It's going to keep us in the key that we're in. We're not going to run into a transition that we've already built too early. It just gives us a lot more flexibility, especially as a worship leader who's also running the tracks. I don't always have time if I'm leading a song to get down. I run my computer on the floor right next to my pedal board. A lot of time, like I don't always have time if I'm leading the song to get down and get us back on the tracks in a live setting. So sometimes you need these fail-safe features, these SOS modes, as I like to call them. So as we are assigning this MIDI cue, we want it to be assigned to this previous locator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the playhead, I'm going to cue it up just before this MIDI note, and then I am going to select what I want the MIDI note to assign to. I want it to assign to this previous locator. So what I'll do here is I'll put the playhead here, and then I'll just hit spacebar, and you'll watch right here on this arrow, once it hits this MIDI note, it'll assign a MIDI note to that. So if you watch this, boom, right there, you can see that .2. Now that is assigned. So when this is going in the context of a service, let's just solo out our click and the MIDI note itself. So we'll solo these two tracks just so we're not getting uncomfortable, awkward jumping around. But what will happen is you'll see that as soon as it hits this note, because I have none selected, it means that's going to go immediately. I think the default in Ableton is this will always be at 1 bar. What this section here, this is a little aside, what this section of Ableton Live is for is when you get a MIDI command, how fast do you want that command to take effect? So if I leave this at 1 bar and I play this, it'll give me 1 measure before it jumps back to the previous locator, just like that. But if I'll bring us back there. If I put it back to none, as soon as it hits the MIDI note, it will jump back. I like having this on none because I'm also running this in conjunction with a foot switch most of the time, and I like being able to have exact control of when I'm jumping to the next locator, the next song. Like say we're in a prayer moment leading into the next song, one of our pastors is praying, and I just want to be able to, once he wraps up his prayer, jump to the next song immediately and not have to click the button and await another measure before it jumps to the next song. So now that I've selected none here, as soon as it hits this MIDI note, it'll jump back to the previous locator. Just like that. It might make a little bit of that kind of double click sound every once in a while, but for me, that's a worthwhile trade-off. Hopefully we never have to use this feature. Hopefully we're on and we're never going to get off the tracks in the context of a service. But if it does, I'd rather have the functionality of being able to control MIDI immediately with my foot switch and have a little bit of a trade-off of that little hitched double click sound when it sends it back immediately. Okay, so what I'm going to do now in the context of a service, as I'm building out my fail-safe modes, my SOS modes, I'm going to copy this MIDI note, and then I'm just going to go to any section that I have need for kind of a backup loop. So in this case, you can see this is my set layout here. We went from Who Else into a time of meet and greet. We had a pad that came in after meet and greet as we were bringing people back into the next song. We have a pad that goes post-message. For when our pastor will generally pray at the end of his message and our band loads during that prayer. So this is just a pad that rolls during that post-message section of the service, and then we were into Underdressed with a tag of Nothing But the Blood. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that it's at near the end of the song. A tip for you, be aware of if you use multi-tracks and there are automated clicks and you're not bringing that automation into your service session, the click might get off of the grid. And what I mean by that, like some songs the click slows down as they automate the multi-track, which means that it's going to get off the grid for the tempo that you have assigned in Ableton for that song. Like in this case, it's 68 BPM, and for this song it's nice because it stays that click is exactly 68 all the way through to the end of the song. But there are songs out there, depending on what you're doing and how you're building out your session, that if you just keep your tempo for the song at 68 and there's no automation, which in our case here, if I pull up the tempo automation, we don't automate the tempo like as in the master track for any of the songs. I only change the tempo per each song. I don't make any automations in for the rest of the song. So that would be our case too. If, say, Who Else reached the end of the song and the arrangement that we had did slow down the click, then I would choose a spot for this MIDI note where the click is still in time. So say at measure 103 here, this started to slow down and get off of the click, or get off of like the grid in terms of tempo. I would put it over at 101 here, where I know and I can see that my tempo is still in time with the grid. So just a tip there. That makes it easier so that when you hit this and it loops you back to your previous locator, you're not having to find time again as a band. It just keeps you in time consistently. So I'm going to copy these MIDI notes, as I said, put them anywhere that I might want them. So for our meet and greet time, generally it's 1 minute and 15 seconds for us in our service, but just in case something happens, I'll throw a MIDI note to loop back near the end of the click, just so click doesn't run out on us. I'll throw one in this post meet and greet section, just in case we want it. I'll throw one at the end of Bless God. So you can see here, this is a good example of when the click, you can see, is off of the grid, meaning that the tempo is slowing down. I'll play it here. I'll take it off solo.
Breakdown.
It slows here. So you can hear that slowing down. So I'll solo this back out. So I'm going to put it where I can see that this is in tempo. So I know that at measure 472, it has been in tempo at that point. So I'll paste it in there before it slows down. I will go to our post message pad just in case the prayer goes long or our pastor is just in the mood for maybe a shepherding moment before we go back into the song, and that would take longer than we have allotted on the timeline. I'm going to throw a MIDI cue here and then just keep an eye on the timeline in the service to make sure that we're good on time before that would happen. And then what I'm going to do, because this Nothing But the Blood tag was a part of Underdressed, I'm just going to go right here, and I know that this is in tempo because this is I made this click myself with this tempo. I'll paste it in here. So now everywhere that we have a failsafe, we have a loop feature. So your question now might be, okay, so you have your loop feature. I don't want it to loop. I want us to stay on. How do I do it? How do I keep it so when I'm in a service, it doesn't automatically loop me? I only want this if I need it. And yes, that's a great point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate the channel here. So let me move my camera a little bit here so you can see. Oops. So I'm going to turn this MIDI channel off, and I only want it to be active when I'm soloing it out. So I want to create a duplicate channel because there's two different instances that I'm going to want a fail-safe mode. The first one being if we're still in time, but we just missed our cue to jump into a song. So say a vocalist, we're playing an instrumental and we're jumping into the verse, and they are a beat or two off, like they come in a beat or two late for the verse. So the tracks are already running with the verse as it is in multi-tracks, as it is in Ableton, but we're not at that point in the song. Like our vocalist just started singing, but we are still in tempo. So this first instance, I want to keep the click in. So I'm going to create a duplicate of this MIDI channel because there's going to be two separate ways that I want to assign things for a loop feature. So The first of which is, because I want to stay with click, I'm also going to duplicate a pad. You'll see why in a second. I'm gonna go to my Command K. In this case, I'm gonna go Command K. This is the same again as MIDI. Like if you can go Command M, you can assign this to a MIDI foot switch, which is what you'd want to do in the context of a service if you're controlling things with a MIDI controller at your feet, or a touchpad, or a launch pad, or whatever you're using. You'll want to assign this to MIDI. But imagine that I'm doing this to MIDI, but I'm going to do it with my keyboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo, because when you solo the channel, it activates the channel. Even though it's turned off, the channel is turned off, when it's soloed, it will activate that MIDI command. So I'm going to solo this and say, because I want, if we're on click, if we're in time, I'm going to say my letter is letter C is going to be what I'm going to select as my key for this instance of my failsafe. So I'm going to solo using the letter C. I want to solo the first MIDI clip here, so I'm going to click C. I also want it to be C here, which it already is because I didn't clear this. And then I also want it to be for this first pad. If I get off, like say we're going right now and we're off in this chorus. We just want to bail to the click, the easy way we have, because we've just assigned this to one button. What we can do is just hit that button, and now all of a sudden the tracks are taken out and we're running with just a pad. We still have our click to keep us in time, and as we run up on this MIDI cue here, what it's going to do is it's going to shoot us back. So now we're back. We're still in time. We have all the time in the world that we need. And then if we get ourselves back on, or the song finishes, what we can do is we can hit our next locator and then hit C again to take us out of this failsafe mode. So we'll hit our next locator, and now we're back out of it and we're all good. So now let's say the same thing happens, but one of our vocalists' pack dies or something like that. So they don't have their ears, they don't know the tempo, they're dragging, they're just trying to feel it out, and it would be more helpful to just ditch the click entirely. I'm going to go back to that Command K, that key assignment mode again, and we're going to assign this second MIDI clip. It's the same channel, it's the same MIDI triggers. We're just going to have it assigned to a different button. So I'm going to do F. In this case, because I know that there's no functions or commands within Ableton that use the letter F on my keyboard that I will take away by assigning it to F, and also because I just like to think of it, if we get in this place, we're just like, we're effed. Like, that may be crass, I'm sorry, I apologize, but that's just the button that I will generally pick. It's also easy for me because if it's dark, and for whatever reason my backlight on my keyboard is not on my Mac, then I can feel the letter F. So I'll hit the solo button on the second MIDI channel. I'll hit F, and then because I duplicated this pad, I will also solo F. So a good practice can be if you need the same channels to be soloed, but because you can only assign one button to each of these buttons in Ableton, like you can have one switch that controls that, you may need to duplicate that track and deactivate it when you're outside of those failsafe modes. So in this case, this second pad is deactivated, but I need it's the exact same thing as this first pad channel, and I just want to make sure that I can solo that out if I need to. So now if we're in the service, we're playing through our songs, and we want to go, we're off the click, the vocalist pack dies, everything is crashing and burning, and we're going to be all right because we can just hit our one button and we are soloed onto just the pad. We can kind of play musically listening to each other to try to get back in tempo together. We may not be in the tempo of the song, but at least we're playing well together. And then we'll hit this MIDI cue, and it will jump us back to Bless God. to the top of it. So we have all the time in the world, again, until we want to move to the next section of the song, in which we can hit the next locator, hit F again, and it will take us out of our fail-safe mode. So that is how I, as a worship leader who runs tracks on stage often, this is how I will configure a loop cue. These are my SOS modes. I hope this is helpful. And again, if you want to explore more together what we can do with an IAC driver on your MacBook, just let me know. We can explore that together. But this is a great way that I use the IAC driver every single week that I'm leading worship to create fail-safe modes. It gives me confidence that even if we're off the tracks, even if someone makes a mistake, because we're all prone to do it, it will happen from time to time. If I don't have the ability to get down on my computer and get us back on manually, then these are great fail-safe modes to have. These are great things to have in your back pocket because it's gonna help our bands succeed even in moments that we aren't succeeding, if you know what I'm saying. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, leave a like on the video, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.